And then that story and song of the South Pacific Adventure is also on that CD. And then I have a separate CD of just the songs and that story that's apart from the book. I have 2 CDs of my harp playing, but I don't have any copies of that left right now, so I don't have any of those with me tonight, but I do have it recorded. And the other book is my autobiography, because I was 76 on the 1st of July, and 2 years ago I finished my autobiography. It was almost 3/4 of a century of very interesting and unique life, and the book is called Just Living Life. There is a booklet that I created for these ideas, and it has some of my artwork in it that just depicts what is in my mind that I'm trying to convey. See, here's the person, and here's the authentic self, and here's the one in charge. That's talking, giving the messages to the authentic self that comes through there. So I was only able to print 5 of these because the blue color was not acting right, and I've already sold 2 of them, so I have 3 left, and they're $5 or $10. So I will tell you about the baskets. When I was 13 at Girl Scout camp, I learned to make baskets, and then I didn't do it for many years, but some people said they wanted to learn to make baskets, so I said, well, I'll make a few as samples. And rather than selling the baskets, I really want to teach making the baskets, but I have sold a few and given several for gifts. So I was sitting there making this basket, and I make it from a vine that grows on my fence, on my trees, on my flowers. I've been trying to get rid of it all the time I've been there. But then I looked at it in a different way and realized that it's a very strong material. If I just wrap the raffia around it, I get a basket. So these are Rainbow Abundance Peace baskets, because I've come to peace with the vine that I was at war with.
You said that you have taught your children to be creative. What did you teach them?
Actually, that's an interesting question. In my case, it was a matter of getting out of the way and allowing them to have the time and creative materials handy so that they could follow their own creative expressions. I was amazed, especially at my daughter, when she was 5 years old, in the color book that my mother sent her and all the box of crayons, the colors that she put together were just amazing. So it was not a matter of my teaching my kids to be creative. It was a matter of allowing their creativity to come forth and not take up all their time with chores and with things that I thought they needed to be doing, but just, it was mostly allowing. My daughter is an architect, a preservation architect, and my son is chief design engineer for Hatteras Yachts. They're pretty creative, intelligent, successful people. My daughter will be 55 in September. My son was 53 in June. This is an interesting drawing. This is the river of agreements. When we come into this life, we are all born into the river of agreements. And we are expected to agree with all of the agreements. And as we grow and think about things for ourselves, we find that we don't always agree with all of the agreements. And it sometimes causes difficulty in the family. The agreements are expressed in laws, rules, ordinances about how your yard has to look, the Constitution, the Ten Commandments, family agreements, spoken and unspoken, creation stories, and we get the agreements also through stories and songs. People may express their diversity and their differences outside of the river of agreements. They may become nonconformist. They may just express their unique creative expressions. The indigenous cultures are often outside the river of agreements. The indigo children don't necessarily swim in the river of agreements too well. The evolving consciousness is outside the river of agreements. And our authentic self is not in the river of agreements. What happens to people when they get outside the river of agreements? Some of them are put in jail, some of them are put in mental institutions. And those that manage to stay in society may be ostracized, persecuted, intimidated, threatened. So I just wanted to make aware of the river of agreements. In my thinking, in my connection to my authentic self that tells me some ideas, I've come to understand that there are firm agreements and tentative agreements. Actually, I think all agreements should be tentative until all the information is in. Then you can make a firm agreement. Things like getting on an airplane when you have a ticket, that's a pretty firm agreement, unless you want to lose the money. But most of our agreements are tentative. The problem is when one person is considering this a tentative agreement. Oh, we'll get together on Saturday afternoon, okay? Okay. But then something else comes up that they'd rather do, and then all of a sudden they're not available. And you thought it was a firm agreement, so you get disappointed. So it's real important to know whether you have firm agreements or tentative agreements with people. And agreements come into play in the democratic process. I think that it is correct for us to participate in the decisions that affect our lives. And that is the true democratic process. So maybe this new Earth nation is going to bring us to a point where we can. Sasha says we don't need to be governed. We need to be left alone. And a small group of people, a community of people, can make agreements. I think those kind of agreements should be by consensus. And the indigenous people, especially the Cherokees, would talk until everyone was in agreement. And that's how they live peacefully in their culture. So I believe that we can get back to those kinds of ways of being on the earth. It was 1994 that I discovered the world of storytelling and saw it as an art form and began creating these stories. And I did recognize that I'm a natural-born storyteller. The Storytelling Association hasn't recognized me yet, so I just go around to little groups like this. But these are stories that have come to me. Twinkle, the littlest star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. You remember Twinkle? She was the littlest star in all the star family, and all the stars shone brightly, all except Twinkle. Twinkle was hiding over in one of the corners of the heavens one day. Her father came and found her there and said, "What's the matter with you?" And Twinkle said, I'm afraid to shine." "Well, you better get over it." "Father sometimes say that." And Twinkle began to cry. Her mother sat down beside her and said, "Twinkle, what's the matter?" And Twinkle said, "I'm afraid to shine. All those people down there looking at me and wondering what I am." About that time the moon looked down and said, "Twinkle, I know how you feel. Sometimes I shine brightly, and sometimes you can barely see me at all." And Twinkle said, "I'm beginning to feel better already." And Twinkle began to shine. Sing with me. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. No matter how small you are, your light does make a difference. So my name is Twinkle. When I was 19 at Girl Scout camp, everybody had a camp name except me, and I said, "Well, you have to give me a camp name." And they said, "We'll call you Twinkle." When my when I had my daughter's scout troop, I had the little brownies and the Girl Scouts call me Twinkle. And when my son was about to have my first grandchild, his wife, he asked what I wanted the grandchildren to call me, and I said, "Have them call me Twinkle." So I am Grandmother Twinkle. That's my storytelling name. 30 years ago, I was afraid to shine. How do we let our light shine? By singing our own songs and telling our own stories. And I invite you to let your light shine. Any more comments or questions?
Yeah. You have helped me tremendously with my great-grandchildren. I see them only occasionally, but you have given me some methods to try to, use with them.
Great. Thank you so much.
Known you a long time, but never really knew you as much as tonight. It's been beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes we just have to shine. So are there any comments about your ideas about earth spirituality?
I'm kind of curious because I believe that the angels are to heaven what the nature spirits and the fairies are to the earth. And I believe that the earth has been going through a renewal process that we're not aware of yet. And I just wanted to know what kind of connection that you have with the nature spirits, because I do a lot of essential oil therapy for myself, and it's my way of connecting. That and being in nature is my way to connect. And so I wanted to know what your views were about that.
I'm very open to the nature spirits. They just haven't revealed themselves to me yet. I'm sure that there are a lot of them living in my yard. But I have not seen them. I've read about them. I recognize them. I know that we are to work in cooperation with the elementals, the nature spirits, because they are really what hold this physical matter in shape. And from what I've read, they're pretty disappointed with us and how we are treating this third dimension, and that we're not recognizing them, we're not working with them. So it's essential to first just intellectually recognize that they're there, and then open our minds and our hearts to allow them to reveal themselves to us if it is appropriate. So thank you so much for bringing up that aspect. Because it's not a part of my reality, I didn't mention it, but it's definitely a part of the bigger picture of Earth spirituality. Thank you for adding that piece.
I wanted to share something that helps me try to stay focused. By my mother, I was taught, and then I have read in several books, that the way we are connected to the great I Am, just like you showed, is by the silver cord. As we are born, that's why our crown chakra is so big and so open. Through the birth canal, that chakra